words of hope, proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ in the languages of the world's peoples.
The second person is Samuel. Samuel became the priest, and Samuel anointed two kings, King Saul and King David. We find his story at the beginning in 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 20 to 28. We look at a man like him who was so significant in the history of Israel, then you will understand that God would want a person like this to be prepared very early in a very special way. His mother was barren. His mother had a co-wife called Peninnah. His father was Elkanah, a priest as well. Samuel came from a mother who never had children. Samuel came from a mother who prayed very earnestly. In chapter 1, verse 11, let me read this scripture to you. And she made a vow. This is Samuel's mother. And she made a vow, saying, O Lord Almighty, if you'll only look upon your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord. And for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. He's asking God. He's crying to God. God, if you'll give me a son, he's asking specifically for a son. If you'll give me a son, I will raise this son up, and I will take this son and give him back to you. Samuel was given. The vow was made. And now these are tying incidences. His mother is tied to God by the word she uttered. This child, you give him to me. If you can ever give me a son, I'll give him back to you. And he was given. And Samuel, I want now look at verse 20. In verse 20, we are reading something that happened much, much later on. Chapter 1 and verse 20. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. When the man Elkanah went up with all his family to offer annual sacrifices to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and we live there always. Look at verse 24. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour and skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord and will worship the Lord there. What an amazing gift of God by a mother who should have held on to her son, because a son to a mother is such a precious gift of God. But this woman, because she made a vow, she made a promise to God, is handing over her son to the priest. Do you remember that the mother brought up the child to the point where the child no longer fed from her breast? But even at that tender age, the mother is training the child. The mother is teaching the child and opening his heart, opening his ears, opening his mind. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Love the Lord. And the little boy was beginning to pick what it was that the Jew believed in their creed. Love God. And then when he brought the son and took him to the priest, he gave him over to another person to mentor the son, to bring him up into the fear of God, for the son to be within the place of worship, the circumstances, the surrounding. You must remember, parents particularly, That where our children live, where our children interact, the people with whom our children interact will determine the character of the child. The circumstances, the environment where our children live is so significant. And so Samuel is going to be in Shiloh, in the place of worship, and under the leadership of Eli, the priest, and old men there. But even the greater thing that the mother did was to dedicate, to give this child to the Lord, to dedicate this child to the Lord. In our culture, we dedicate our children to our culture, to the spirits of the ancestors, to the gods of our people, and the gods and the spirits take them up. And no wonder you will discover that if these children are not going to know the living God, they will be servants of the inferior spirits, the spirits of the culture of the clan, the spirits that will lead them according to that culture. But this woman offered a child to the living God and the true living God. My parents, as you listen to me, will you offer your children to the God, the creator of heaven and earth, the one who gave you the gift of a child? Will they begin to know that God when they are still very little? You are planting the seed of a very long-lasting effect, not only in your child, but in your great-grandchildren to many generations to come. And if you do it like Hannah did, the dividend, the profits will be much bigger in many more years to come. And we want to remember that often when we are dedicated to demonic forces, we are bound. We can never ever rise above our culture. We can never ever rise above our fathers. We can never ever rise anywhere else. But then we know of a God, the creator of heaven and earth, the owner of the universe. Our scope must be bigger. Only when parents can dedicate us to this same God. That is number 2, and that name is called Samuel.
Brought to you by Words of Hope, Bishop Henry Luke Orombi, a retired Archbishop of the Church of Uganda.
Jesus,